Hey, welcome back to Real Housewife Recaps. Today I'm covering Below Deck Med, Season 5, Episode 3, The Italian's Job. And woo! Ding dong, the witch is gone. Goodbye, Lara. This was a great episode. At least the beginning was, but let's talk about it. I do want to say, this is hard to say, and I hope you guys don't turn on me for this. But I have always been a Captain Sandy fan, and I still like her. But I don't know. I sense something different this season. Do you guys feel it? Is it like a camera hungriness? I can't put my finger on it. I don't know. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. Is it just me? Am I just waning on her a little bit? Just curious. So we pick up where we left off last week with the meeting with Hannah and Lara that was not going well at all. Hannah goes to get Captain Sandy, and Sadie sits down with them. So Hannah starts to talk and says, I've asked Lara what I've said to invoke this reaction, and she says I've been horrible the whole charter. And Sadie says, let her speak. So let's talk for 1 second here. I don't know. I guess this is where I struggle. Believe me, I am so not a Hannah fan. I've never been a Hannah fan. She's just gotten progressively worse over the last few seasons. But I don't think Sandy handled this very well. If she's all about hierarchy, like with Malia, she does a great job of letting Malia assert herself over her deck team, as she should. She's not doing that for Hannah. She's wanting Lara to speak up, which Lara should speak up if she feels this way, but it's weird that she didn't let Hannah finish her thought and tell from her perspective what was going on. So Sandy talks about how she and Hannah have been through their stuff, and Lara just kind of, and believe me, I'm not a Lara fan, but all she said is, oh really, as well, pointing out that Hannah is hard to get along with. Well, Sandy did not like that at all. She said, see, that's not really nice. I'm mad now, and it's just weird. I thought the whole interaction was kind of strange. Lara sucks, believe me. I am so glad she's gone. And Hannah sucks. But I don't know. I didn't think that warranted that reaction from Sandy. And I think Lara getting that reaction from Sandy and the way that Hannah was toward her, again, Lara sucks. She only thinks about herself, so who knows what the hell she was thinking. Totally insubordinate, awful to work with. Who could put up with that? But I really feel like that's probably some of the reasons she left. Also, that she couldn't just do whatever she wanted. That's probably part of it as well. So the meeting goes on and doesn't really go anywhere. They talk about resetting, but we all know what happens there. We have Malia talking to the deck crew. Pete is just such a toolbox. If you haven't heard, which I'm sure you all have, I'm sorry this one is late this week, but Pete is a racist ass, and he's, just Google it. He's awful. So it sounds like they're going back and re-editing, which is interesting, to minimize his stuff, which I am perfectly happy with. I'm fine just to cut his ass out of the show because I don't think he adds anything. He's calling himself the uni here. He's awful. He calls Malia sweetheart and sweetie all the time. And could you imagine? Would you ever do that in any kind of non-romantic situation? Rob, I don't know about Rob. He just has no personality. I mean, he's okay. I thought I liked him at first, but I'm realizing he's just a big dull dud. I think Jessica is my favorite this season. She seems to have a great personality, and I'm especially excited to see next week because it sounds like she and Hannah kind of go at it a little bit. But Jessica and Rob seem to be into each other some. Then the captain calls a preference sheet meeting. So we have Roy Orbison Jr. So of course his dad is Roy Orbison. The first song that comes to mind there is Pretty Woman. So Google that if you have no idea what I'm talking about. It's him and his wife and his kids and the guy from Ace of Base, which I'm a huge 90s geek, so that was super cool to see. I didn't know his name, but I like his group. They make a big deal talking about this Palma Cathedral that the group really wants to go to, and of course we see in the previews for next week. That turns to shit, so I can't wait to see what happens there. So the meeting ends, and we go back to Rob here, and Does anybody else see it? All I can see with Rob is I think he looks so much like Pewdiepie. I think they have very similar facial features. It's pretty funny. So then we have Pete and Lara, and I swear these two deserve each other. They're both the worst. So they're hanging out in the crew mess talking. Pete's showing her pictures of himself. It's just so disgusting and narcissistic. And again, these two belong together, I swear. So suddenly Pete gets serious. He tells a really sad story about his father. That's awful. And his father is battling cancer and doesn't have very long, which leads me to ask, why are you on the show? But Laura, can you imagine somebody's telling you this about their family and you're sitting there with them? And Laura says, can we talk about something happier? Can we move on? Can you imagine? That's awful. So the gang, it's time for them to go out. Hannah is having reservations about it, whatever. And they all go to dinner, and freaking Pete, he just continues to be the worst. He starts telling a story about working for a woman who owned a bunch of dominoes. And he ends this stupid ass story, this misogynistic story, with if she can do it, then... And Malia makes the funniest face to camera and says, wait, what? So Hannah's venting to Kiko. I still love Kiko. I think he's great. His food looks delicious. Everybody's getting drunk. And Pete is hitting on Lara. And Rob is hitting on Jessica. And they're kind of flirting. Then Malia kind of has a talk with Lara. And Malia just flatly says, if one of my deck crew, if I asked them to do something and they told me no, they'd get fired. And so you'd think this sinks in for Lara. It doesn't. Not shocking. She can only think about herself. And then tell me you caught this scene afterwards when they're walking back to the boat, where I believe it's Alex, it's kind of hard to tell, is standing over against a building and he says, piss my pants, no big deal. That is so disgusting and kind of funny. So Pete goes looking for Lara. He walks in on Jessica changing. So here's where things get interesting. It's the middle of the night. They show Lara passing out. The next morning, about 6 a.m., 6 hours before the charter guests are due to arrive, Lara is gathering her stuff, walking around the boat. The others flash to her empty bed. So clearly she's over it. Apparently she just wanted the free meal out or whatever with the crew, and then she's taken off. So good riddance. During all this, we flash over to Malia, who is greeted by Pete, the unit, with a hi, sweetie. Again, what situation is that okay to say at work? That's disgusting. And I really like Malia. I think she's one of the better crew members this season. But where I get frustrated with her is right there. She should have said to knock it off or just tell him that is not okay. But instead it comes out later when she's talking to Captain Sandy. So I just didn't care for that very much. So some of the deck crew is a little bit late for their shift and she's not happy about it. We'll go over to Hannah and Jessica. Hannah's looking for Lara, supposedly not realizing that Laura's not on the boat. I don't know, it felt a little set up to me, but she says, are we playing hide and seek? She's looking around for her, and all of a sudden, who radios in but Lara? She calls Captain Sandy, and Sandy goes out there to meet her out on the dock. And as soon as Lara tells her she's over it, she's done, that was a pretty funny scene. If you notice, Captain Sandy just kind of reached out and snatched that radio away. Which, who could blame her? Good riddance, Lara. So Lara's hanging out on the dock, and Captain Sandy calls a crew meeting, and they just get together real quick, and Sandy fills them in that they're going to be down a stewardess for the next charter, and she tasks Pete with gathering Lara's stuff. So he packs it up and he rolls it out to her. When he goes out there, he's hugging on her and telling her that he dropped his card in there for her. She barely even pretends to be interested in him, and she walks off into the sunset. Peace out. You got Pete moping around the boat like a big old baby, and Alex is laughing hysterically, saying he doesn't even know her last name. And I find that very funny, especially because they were calling her Lana for part of this, the few episodes she was in. He's crying into a pillow, and it's just ridiculous. He's just having a pity party for himself, and he should have just gone with her. And on a very funny note, she says there's no way that she would do a long distance relationship with him. So I'm curious if they'll bring her back for the reunion. Not that there's anything she could possibly say to defend her awfulness, but I'm just curious. I'd be curious to see if she comes back and what she could possibly say. So then it's time for the guests to arrive. So we got Roy Orbison Jr. and his wife and Nanny and the guy from Mesa Base. And I just kind of want to fill you in on some backstory here. So he, as well as his brother, who is Alex Orbison, they are members of a group called White Star. And the reason that's interesting is I actually remember them. I remember them. They had a show on MTV, and the show was called The Rock Life. It was a rockumentary on MTV, if you will. And they did some stuff with Cisco Adler. And if you're like, who's Cisco Adler? So Cisco Adler is this very strange looking guy that in the early 2000s dated everybody. Misha Barton, Lauren Conrad, all kinds of people. Kimberly Stewart, I remember that. And they featured him heavily on this reality show. So that's the only reason I kind of peripherally knew of this Orbison guy, is because of that silly show. And to bring up full circle, the funny thing is this Cisco Adler guy and the White Star, they often paired up with this group called Swayze, and they did a song the only song that I know of theirs that got popular was called, ironically, Corona and Lime. So anyway, look that up. It's pretty. So the guests get on board, they're getting settled, and Kiko's cooking them something and talking about how great it is now that Laura's gone and the energy's much better. There's some drama with the slide. There's always drama with the slide. I love Kiko. He's so funny when he's cooking. The guests seem pretty low maintenance so far. We'll see. At dinner, there's a pretty funny scene with Hannah forgetting about the musicians. These musicians get up and play for the group. The group seemed happy. The second part of the episode was kind of a snooze fest. The only interesting part happens here, where it's kind of a meeting with Captain Sandy, and Captain Sandy's complimenting her, and they're talking about how it's going with the deck crew. And Malia talks about how ridiculous it is that Pete especially is calling her sweetheart and sweetie. Of course, Captain Sandy will not put up with this. She calls them up to the wheelhouse. Captain Sandy says Charter 2 is not forgiving. Malia is not sweetheart. You wouldn't call a guy sweetheart, right? I want it to stay professional. And Malia says, I'm not your sweetheart. And if you don't like it, you can leave. Rob seems too boring to be disrespectful, and Alex seems a little clueless. So I wonder if it's just Pete that's being awful or if it's all of them. So I'm very curious about that. We get a flash to next week's episode. We have people hooking up. It looks like it may be Jessica and Rob. They're setting up that picnic at the cathedral that the guests asked for. It looks like it's going to rain. Somebody ends up getting cut. And then Captain Sandy says they're bringing on a new stew. And it's somebody that Hannah knows. So I'm very curious about that. What are your thoughts? What do you think? I haven't read spoilers on purpose. My guess is maybe Bugsy. I just have a feeling because she has been Chief Stew in the past and she did well before. And I have read that some people are anti-Bugsy, but I actually liked her a lot. I thought she was pretty good. She did say if I was Chief Stew, a whole heck of a lot, but I liked her because she confronted Hannah. So I'm very curious to see how that'll go. And that's it for the episode. Sorry this one came out a little later this week. I should be back on time next week, right after they air. But be sure to check out my other episodes. I also cover Real Housewives of New York, and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, as well as the Vanderpump Rules reunions, all kinds of stuff. So check it out. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Real Recaps. And thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Bye.